What's going on, guys? Joey Franzo here with good old Ben Rice. How you doing, Ben?
Doing pretty well, Joe. How are you doing?
I got up like an hour ago.
Yeah, samesies.
but I'm gonna try to be as competent and coherent as possible for the next hour to hour and a half.
Sound good.
Nice little setup you got going there. Did you paint the walls yourself, or did you have someone do it?
Built the walls.
Built
Built the
these
walls.
walls.
Yeah. Anybody who's seen any of the videos the last couple of weeks or follows the Instagram at all, they might notice there were a bunch of boxes that were there. And those boxes are still there. So I went and got a bunch of 4x8 styrofoam,
Do I sound
like
better
compact. Yeah.
Okay, my mic was like all the way in the corner. My bad. So you got the boxes.
It's all good. Yeah, well, moved all the boxes around. They're still up there, and then got all these 4x8 compacted styrofoam walls, painted them black, and then I installed them up there. So the walls are a lie.
You
They're
know,
not real.
typically when I do these things, it's just like a head, so there's nothing
Yeah.
to look at. But now I'm like looking,
Look at all this
I'm like,
stuff,
damn,
right?
dude. Like, question. So do you still have that bent bar? From
Yeah.
a while? I
Yep,
remember.
it's under
Man,
there.
I remember that, and then the Ohio bar became a thing, and then.
Well, no, I lifted with the bent bar for about 7 or 8 months because I got a Texas Power Bar, bent it 3 weeks after getting it.
How did you bend it?
I, being an idiot, taking an extra rep on a squat that I shouldn't have, and I dumped it over my head. And I don't know if I've missed a training squat since then. That must have been like
Yeah, I was
years
gonna
ago.
say squat especially is a lift where I feel like just because so much rides on squat, it's the beginning of the meet. There's a lot of momentum that can be built off of squats. I even tell people, in a meet, it's okay to leave 5 to 10 pounds in the tank because you want to hit that lift with confidence, and you still have the rest of the meet. And in training, I'm like the same way. Like yesterday, everybody's like, "Oh man, bro, that squat was so easy," and I'm like, I don't know, dude. I was kind of pushing it. But you don't want to miss a squat. It just kills you. It literally crushes you, and you just feel,
Right.
it can just wreck your confidence and everything. But no more bending bars because we're not. I mean, we're bending bars on our backs with weight, but we're not gonna dump anything.
Yeah.
Are those the same rails?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everything else is the same. It just did a number on the bar. I was really actually lucky that it bent evenly. So both sides bent the same angle. So I was able to use it for 7 or 8 months before I got another one. And then I got another Texas Power Bar because that was before I think the Ohio was getting popular.
Mm-hmm.
And I used that for a few years, and then now we're on that Ohio Power Bar grind because that's the bar bay. You know how it is.
Yeah, man. I mean, I have multiple. I really like that bar. It's I have noticed, and you probably noticed too, that it does have some slack. It is not like an Eleiko, but it is considerably. It's so weird. Like it feels different than a Texas Power Bar, but it does have slack. So. I
Huh.
don't
Well,
know.
we must have got a weird version because mine feels stiffer than an
Like
Eleiko.
it
Every
doesn't
time I've gone to a meet
really.
or done or messed around with an Eleiko, I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels whippy as heck. And the Eleiko
Mm,
feels like the knurling is softer on the hand, where
I can see that.
this thing feels like it shreds. I don't know though. That's the first time I've heard someone say that
Oh
they
yeah,
felt like
like
the Ohio wasn't.
it definitely feels like it has some slack. Um, I mean, you could probably do. I mean, you deadlift a shit ton. You could probably get a ton of slack before you initiate. Which, by the way, we might talk about that a little bit later because it is so hard to get the whole, apply tension into the bar, pull slack, get into position, and then initiate with your legs. Like, it's so hard to get people to do that. I don't know why it's so hard to explain that to people. Like, I'm not gonna lie. When I first started powerlifting, actually, many moons ago, you were. So we're gonna get into the history of Ben Rice and his how he came into creation, but I literally can't think of anyone who has been a powerlifter putting out powerlifting stuff longer than you. I know my
I'm
T was
sure there are
around.
people,
Well, yeah, of
but
course, but like for our and like in my generation, like you're
right.
our age, like I can't think of anyone that was. I'm sure. Like, who did you when you came up in the power? Well, first off, for those of you that don't know, tell us some of your lifts. Tell us your
Uh,
rap lifts too, because I used to watch you back when
all
back
right.
when you were doing that.
So I actually, when I started out, I started training in 1999. I was 10 years old. I did my first powerlifting meet in 2005. So I've been competing in powerlifting since 2005.
How did you get it? Like, why powerlifting? Like,
High
why not
school.
baseball or?
My high
Oh, okay.
school had a team. I played a bunch of sports. I played soccer from when I was like 4 until the end of high school. I ran cross country in junior high. I played football. I wrestled for 6 years. Played little league when I was a kid up until starting high school. Let me see what ran track, played basketball. I just did a lot of athletic things. I wasn't good at a lot of
That's
them.
why we all end up powerlifting.
That was, and I wasn't even good at powerlifting. Like I wasn't. There was nothing about me. I have kind of the joke. I would say no one ever accused me of being genetically gifted until I had been training for almost 10 years. So that's a fun little thing. But yeah. So through high school was lifting as a single ply lifter because that was the only option. The guys who I was coming up with were like West Side was really big then, the conjugate system, and multiply was everything. So powerlifting was the idea of getting your equipment on. So I remember Brent Mikesell, the old, I don't know if you remember that guy,
It sounds familiar, but
super strong multiply squatter who actually hit depth. It was really amazing. But he came to a couple of high school meets and helped me understand some multiply style stuff. But that's where I really got started in powerlifting, was in equipped lifting. Eventually, I switched towards raw with knee wraps, and at one point, I was able to reach. I think I weighed 209 at the time. I squatted 705 in wraps. I got up to a 390. My best current competition bench press is 392. Stupid shoulder. And then my deadlift, I've hit 750 in a meet. I've hit 800 on my deadlift bar here.
I think I've seen I've seen that. I think you have it as like the ending of your videos. I don't know if you still do, but it's like you pulling 750, and you're just like guys, he's really calm, right? And he's chill right now, but when this motherfucker goes off in a meet, he's like insane. And it's crazy because like I have not had a meet like that where I just lose my mind since like August 2015. It's like a meet where nothing can go wrong. You're literally on fire no matter. It seems like whatever weight you put on there, you're gonna lift, and everything's a PR. And I hope that everyone can experience that. And it's a great fucking feeling when you train really hard for a long time and you can hit something big where it counts.
Yeah, so that meet actually everything had gone wrong, and I hyped up for that deadlift so much because I'd missed 750 for like I had attempted it for 3 years at different meets, and I'd get up in my third attempt I'd always take 750 and miss. And it was like 3 years to go from like 740 to 750. It was frustrating.
So when you hit 7 and guys are like, bro, 750 around the corner, you're like, nah, man, it's literally like it'll go like that, and then it's like,
yeah, the better you get, the harder you have to work to keep getting better. Like you can't it's not linear. No. Unless if that line is real slopey.
Like right now, like on my bench, because I've been doing it longer than anything else, I'm happy with 5 pounds. Like, if I bench 470 this year, I would be so happy. I would be like, and I've hit 463 like my last 5 times in a meet. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, granted, some were easier than others. Right. But it's like once you get up there, and I know Lane talks about this. He's like, "Yo, it might take me a year to put 5 pounds on my deadlift," You know what I mean? Maybe. You know, it might take 3 years to put 10 pounds on your deadlift. You know, especially the higher you get up. Uh, I do you think? Well, I'll say what I think, and then you can tell me what you think. I don't think that we can I don't think the human body will plateau because it always needs to find a way to survive, right? It sees like lifting as a threat, you know what I mean, to our existence, and we have to adapt to whatever it is we're doing. So I don't think we'll ever stall, but I do think you can get to a point where your gains are gonna slow, like unless you gain like 20 pounds, and then it's kind of like you're using similar amounts of muscle, but you have better leverage now. And I know, and it's actually, I'm glad that I have you on because um, you were like 230 ish, and then you went down, and then you went back up. And I just went from being 255 at the Arnold to, you know, I'm like 230 now. So
Yeah.
it's like, I definitely feel like my SBDs are still like same size and same thing to get on. You know, my legs didn't really go anywhere. I don't feel like I lost any muscle, especially when your body fat's that high. You know what I mean? It's like hard. I mean, you're gonna lose some, but it's usually like the leaner you get, then you start to see, you know, you're dropping muscle. But like I just don't have the squish. I just don't have as much squish. So like, you know, I might not like my reps, like what I'm hitting for reps is very similar, but when I was 250, I could hit 650 like it wasn't that hard, you know. And now
Yeah.
it's like everything hurts. You feel your hip flexors a little bit more. And did you feel that? Did you feel like I felt like you didn't really lose much, if anything. Maybe your deadlift felt better when you went down because that's a typical thing that I hear. Or
Well, what I think, because there's kind of a little bit to unpack in all that. The first thing about how not, I don't think the thing that stalls out the most when it comes to progress is that the person's not able to progress. I think what really happens is that it's about managing injury.
yeah,
That's like the big thing. Most people will get to that point and they keep trying to push and they keep trying to push and they keep trying to push. And you can't force your body to grow faster than it's gonna go.
Yeah.
Like you can encourage it along the way. You can implement solid training protocols. You can take care of all the factors that you have any input on in terms of introducing the right kind of stimulus and making good decisions and managing your recovery as much as possible. But you can't accelerate that process. The fastest way I would think that people could really go about doing that would be introducing drugs or something. And obviously we compete in a tested federation, so that's off the table. So I think it really comes down at those higher levels to just being patient enough to not snap yourself up while you're trying to get better. So
really quickly before we continue to expand on that, I have noticed. I was gonna make a video on this, but I didn't really know how to word it. I wanted to think about it for a little bit, but you know, can you get too strong too fast? I think there's like literally like a very short time frame of that, and then there's a kind of a longer one, which is you know, when I have a new lifter they've never really had any kind of optimized training, they don't know, they've just been kind of YOLOing in the gym, and then when you optimize things and you give them structure and they're in a caloric surplus, they're just like, they're gonna kill everything that they try to lift in the gym. And sometimes they can, you know, their muscles are going to grow so fast and they're going to get so neurological. It's like a lot of different things. The neurological efficiency, muscles are growing, you know, they're putting on weight, so their leverages are getting better. And they have a lot of like momentum psychologically just from killing it in the gym. Then, you know, PR, and then injury, because it's like, wow, I've gone up 50 pounds on squat from where I was like in 4 weeks, and now I'm hurt and I need to take a step back, you know. So, or if you like kind of change a stance that you're not used to, but you're still very strong, so you're lifting this weight from a stance you're not used to, and you snap something, you know, those are things. That's why it's like you don't want to hold someone back, but you want to periodize it to where like that doesn't happen. Sometimes you'll still be in a net win even if it does happen, like if it's a small strain or something. On the other side of the coin, when you've been lifting for a very, very, very long time, so this week, right, we're getting close to nationals. How many times have you handled over 600 pounds on squat or deadlift in the last, you know, month? Probably a good amount of times, right? Like
I haven't Monday was the
not really
first
on
time
squat, yeah, but on deadlift.
Monday's the first time on squat that I've gone over 585 since my last meet in June. I've been working up to like 585. I did a pause set of 4 last week and like 5 triples for regular squats in the same week. Monday I took I went my normal warm up. I take plate jumps up to 495. I jumped up to 585 for my last warm up. Went 605 for a single, 620 for a single, and then my back offs was like 575. First time I've gone over 600. And then deads, I hadn't touched. I've had 4 lifts over 700 pounds since my last meet, and they all came in the last 5 days. I had 2 singles at 705 on Saturday. I did them beltless because I'm a sassy boy. And then last night I took 710 and a 725 single before my back off work. And that was just because my heavy days used to be Saturdays, and like this week we switched so that I have my heavy squat day on Monday and then like bench whatever, and then my heavy deadlift day Tuesday. So those got mushed together. So that's why I went that quickly. But for the most part, we kind of play around with more sub-maximal stuff. I spend a lot of time doing volume. Hanny and Eric have me doing some. I think maybe with the exception of Chance, I probably have the most volume that either of them give to anybody. But it's all sub-maximal stuff. I spent a majority of this training block doing high rep squats under 500 pounds.
So to go along with what I was saying, that's RPE 6 is like RPE 6 to 8 is the money zone. So if you can get a lot of work done in those low RPEs and build your work capacity, let me ask you this: did you feel like shit when you took that single, or did it feel fine? Did you feel good? Like, was it like, oh shit, I haven't had anything heavy on my back, or did you feel great?
No, that comes down to trusting the process.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time, because I'm really big into the mental game. That's kind of what my brand is sort of associated with, is the mentality that comes with the process. And when you trust the process, I don't want to fall into the meme of how you feel is a lie, but sometimes if you're managing your expectations versus your reality, then you can get a little bit. I don't know. It's things. You're not as negatively affected by feeling tired. No, like that's what I mean though. That's what I mean though. When it comes to like literally how I interpret the feeling on my body is different based off of my perception of what I'm capable of doing.
You're probably like not a good example for this, because you've been doing it for so long, and you're not gonna have those. Like a lot of people will say, oh man, like I want to hit singles because I don't like that when I go into lift, 500 pounds, it feels really, really heavy. And then mentally I get screwed. But on video, it'll move great. And what you have been able to accomplish is just remove whatever kind of little voice in your head that's like, oh man, this is really heavy. Oh man, you're doing too much. Oh man, whatever. Just get that out and like, focus on... Trust the process and know that it's going to be there. Yeah. Going back to what I was saying originally, you are much stronger now than you were in the past, and especially on deadlift. And you're going to be getting close to, assuming you're not gaining or losing weight, a limit. It's not really a limit. It's like a ceiling that can be increased, but it's going to be really hard over time, and the risk. I remember I was talking to Mark Bell he was at Barbell one day, and he was just like, I was like, why did you stop competing? And he said, it got to a point where what I needed to do to get better became like, so I guess, including like taking vitamins and training and just everything that he needed to do to push himself, he would just break. Like whenever he got close to that point, snap, you know what I mean? And it was like, I get that, I could see that. I think they're definitely handling weights that like you or I could not ever reach. Like I'm not gonna bench I mean, if I got really fat, I could probably bench 500, but I'm not gonna squat 800 pounds. You know what I mean? So I I could imagine like just working with those big ass weights, really pushing that ceiling. You know, we're handling heavy weight, and we're humans, and I think that there is some kind of a limit. We don't really know. We can't really put a pinpoint on it. But the higher you push that ceiling, you know, there's always a risk that you go in one day to deadlift, and you know you strain an ab. You know what I mean? Like some random thing can happen.
You can do everything right and still get hurt, and that's one of the reasons
really
why I've really
that.
doubled down. I've doubled down a lot on holding myself accountable for positioning integrity and technical efficiency and consistency. Because if you're doing everything right and you still get hurt, imagine if you're opening the door by doing things wrong or unsafely or you might get lucky and skate by for years and years and years, but the chance of getting hurt is much higher. I'd rather eliminate that as much as possible. And I think the only reason that anybody would look at what I've done as being successful is because I've been able to do it long enough that I took my average genetic self and put almost 2 decades of work in avoiding and managing the amount of time that I spend having to build back up. I think that's the biggest key. I think that's the secret to, air quotes, secret to my success is nothing magical. It's just being stubborn for long enough and avoiding major career-ending injuries for a long enough period of time and being patient with my own body and learning every time that I stumble back or every time that I have something happen, I try to learn from it so that I don't repeat that again and come back a little bit better prepared, a little bit smarter, a little bit stronger the next time, and then just do that for 20 years and see how far you get instead of worrying about like, oh, how much further can I go? Who the frick cares?
And I'm sure you probably went through the. I don't actually know because your time was probably very, very different than our. You know, now that we have social media and everything, but because you're an old grandpa, you know, Ben the Great, you know, the first ever lifter and raw lifter in existence.
About to be 28 next Wednesday.
Oh, really, man? Happy early birthday!
Thank you, friend.
I'll try to get this up, maybe on that day. Who knows? Oh,
we'll see.
Time it up. But, yeah, so what the hell was I saying? Yeah, when I first got into it, and I know a lot of guys were like this when I was younger, it almost seemed like you wanted to hurry up to get strong. Like, you wanted to, everybody was just got to get strong quick, got to get strong quick, got to get strong quick. Got to do all the volume in the world to lift all the weight. Which brings me into Smolov. How did you, I know you've ran Smolov and survived it many times. Crazy, and you don't have any like lifelong permanent damage from that. Like that's so crazy to me, man.
Oh,
you're
man,
savage, dude. But you
dodged a few bullets there.
Yeah, that Smolov is. I was talking to one of my coach buddies about it, Brian Miner, and he was like, "I'm looking at this and I don't understand the rhyme or reason behind any of it. It just seems like a fuck ton of percentages and volume to just kill you." I kind of get what they're trying to do, but it's like. The main thing is like, I know you're doing a lot now, but you're probably not doing anything close to what you were doing then. Or if you are, it's much lighter weight.
Well, now I'm deadlifting too. Last 2 times I ran it with actually implementing deadlifting, like I was doing the program, and then I would take out some of the sets and add deadlifting back in. What I'll say, because I don't know too many other people who have run that silly program as many times as I have. I definitely don't know anybody who's run it as many times as I have and not been either on drugs or hurt themselves severely. So the biggest benefits from that program, I never ran it with my true 1 rep max. I always took off a percent. Like I would always take 10% off the top before starting, and that was what I would do. So for one, when it's like 90% for whatever that for a 5x5, which should be physically impossible, it was never actually 90%. You expected to get stronger in that. I think that the benefits from that were, one, mental resilience training. It
Yeah.
teaches you how to not complain when you feel like garbage and you still have to do 10 triples. And then the other thing is, when you're using a light enough weight, if you hold yourself accountable, it helps you get really well practiced at the movement. However, just blanket stay. I would not have any of my athletes run that program for any reason, because I think that it is kind of the short term. Here's maybe a way to think about it. John Bros is really famous for that phrase, "Your body is a lie," or the way your body's lying to you. It's how you feel is a lie. And for the squat every day system that is always talked about, he always uses if I had your family held hostage and I said I was going to kill your family if you didn't put 50 pounds on your squat, you had 30 days, would you squat once or twice a week, or would you squat every day? And that's a powerful image for people in their mind. But here's what I would say. Take that exact same situation, but instead of 30 days, make it 2 years and increase the amount you have to gain on your squat. Because anybody can do something crazy for a short amount of time and put your body through and hope that you make it to the end. Like, that's, anybody.
Hope. You never want to just hope.
Right. Well, but that's the idea, though, right? Is like that kind of logic makes more sense in that time frame. But if you extend that time frame over a career, over when you have a better chance to make more progress in the long run when you take that long-term approach instead of trying to rush it in here. Because then what happens when you finish Smolov? Well, assuming you made it through and didn't get hurt, you're gonna. What do you do to continue past that? Yeah, you can't add more to that. You're gonna die. I'm surprised you didn't die already. Good job. But it's kind of along those lines. I think that the mental resilience and toughness, there's other ways you can go around building that, and that kind of an extreme, I guess, the warrior mentality that a lot of people try to put into it, of like, oh, my training is a war zone. It's like the best progress you're gonna probably be making is when you're putting more time into your nutrition and your rest and your recovery, and being really patient and intelligent with your training and avoiding injury.
You can actually get away with, and this is kind of so let's take Chance for example, right? He does a lot of work. You do a lot of work too, but I just feel like I know for a fact he has done a little bit too close to the meat, because he's mentioned it, but I think that, like, I'm a big believer on desensitization and resensitization to training stimulus, and I know that Eric, agrees with this too, because we've talked about it. I was watching something with him a long time ago, TSA podcast, probably one of the first ones, and I was like, literally my brain was just like, and then when he said that, I was like, oh, something that I like, because there's no like, a paper. There's no paper saying this thing exists. This thing absolutely exists, and this is the thing. But I've seen it many, 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 many times, and even with myself, I didn't run Smolov, but I ran like when the DUP was like, which for those that don't know, daily undulating periodization is just means that you're hitting a lift multiple times per week in different rep ranges. That's literally all it means. But when it came out, the coach that I was working with at the time was like, hey, I've never done this before, and he was working with, I think Mike Zordos, or somebody that was working with Mike Zordos, and he was like, I've never run this before, you seem like you can handle it, do you want to try it? And basically I was squatting, you got the 4x8 Monday, the 5x6 in the middle of the week, and then the 5x4 at the end of the week, and then a plus set. That is literally more volume now than I would do in an entire month in that 1 week. Seriously, I found a way to, I squat low bar once a week, and then I do high bar another day of the week, and then I pull once every other week, because I have, for those that don't know, I don't want to make this about me, but I hurt my back doing lunges with 120-pound dumbbells like a dumbass when I was a bodybuilder bro. Back in the Joey Flexx days when I was lean and mean, and I ended up like herniating a disc in my lower back. That leaked fluid, and then it ended up like it never healed completely, and I still have it, and I actually feel it right now sitting in this chair. But it was a long process. I had to go through a lot of shit to get to overcome it, and find a way to just train. And I think powerlifting literally saved me. I had doctors tell me, and this is gonna get into something that I wanted to ask you about. Have you gone to doctors for any injuries, or have you just kind of handled it yourself? Don't answer that yet. But basically, I was doing a lot, right? I was doing a lot. I got into just a ton of squatting and all that stuff, and I hurt myself doing, oddly enough, not something that was powerlifting related. And then powerlifting kind of helped me reinforce that area and make that area stronger, so that down the road, I'm squatting. Like, I like to kind of build momentum as I lead up into a meet, and I don't squat very frequently, so I need to create a reason for adaptation, right? So I can't be, I could do it like you're doing a bunch of submaximal work, which is really, really good, and I think you should do that, and I do that on my bench, but with squats, just because of my ailments, and because how my back is, that's why I deadlift with such low frequency. That's why I squat with such low frequency. I am squatting in flats now, so I am using a little bit more of my back, but I can't handle crazy volume like that. So my approach is to use a little bit more intensity with myself, and get away with, like, I'm doing less overall, but I am going heavier, maybe a little bit more than you would be. You know what I mean? I've had over 550 on my back for like the last 12 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm good. Like, it's not that. It's just when I start getting up there, like when I start, like yesterday, that 6:30 kind of felt wonky. But I mean, I come home, stretch a little bit, get on the inversion table. I don't know if you have one.
I don't, but I
don't think
should get one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're good, then you probably don't need it. But for me and my injury, I know that it helps me tremendously.
Yeah.
Because I need to open up that area. And if I don't, then I'm just going to be fucking walking around screwed up. But I think it's very interesting, because going back to and desensitization, I used to do a ton, and I did make gains, but my body couldn't handle it, so I had to find a way to continue doing what I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't, even the submaximal stuff, like it's just something about just squatting. Like, I have something in my hip also that prevents me from pulling sumo. Like, I was really stubborn and I kept trying to do it, and I was like, okay, maybe it won't hurt this time, and then it just happens. It has to do with the way that my femur fits into my acetabulum, so like your socket.
Mm-hmm.
There's like nothing I can do about it, and I've gone to see doctors and everything, and they're like, that's just how you are. So I'm like, whatever, I gotta compromise. I'll pull cat back conventional and do what I can. I'll be happy with a 5-pound PR once a year, and I'm perfectly okay with that, and I'm happy with that. And you're probably okay if you hit 760 this year, you'd probably fucking be ecstatic. Have you ever hit that in a meet?
Not officially, no. Heaviest is 750 in a meet.
What's the actual number? Is it 762? 7?
I don't even know.
See, guys, not even pay attention to numbers, because we don't care about numbers. We don't care.
It's not going to affect it. I won't call any of my own numbers at nationals. Eric and Hanny will call every weight for me. I won't know what's on the bar.
Actually, guys, I think me and Ben were in the same primetime session last year, and Ben was like zoned the fuck out listening to, I don't even know, what do you listen to? What were you listening to that? Do you remember?
I haven't been listening to much lately. It was probably more of an acapella music, though. That's probably it.
We'll get into that. Yeah. Did you go 93 last year?
Nationals?
Uh-huh.
I was in the prime time with Jesse last year, yeah, 93.
Dude, that session was like okay, so Eric is really calm, right? Like, he's very monotone and just kind of chill.
Yeah.
I remember Dave Ricks hit something and then Jesse hit something, and then he turns around and he's like, "Hey man, this is a lot." and I'm just like, Fuck, dude, I'm going insane because I had two juniors competing against each other in that flight, and then I was handling Jesse, and then my girlfriend was the other flight that was right before.
Right.
Like literally, they're rotating. So I'm fucking like sensory overload. You know what I mean?
That was I'm coached by both Eric and Hanny.
Yeah.
But in that flight, but Darrington and I were both in the same flight, and Hanny coaches Darrington.
Yeah.
And so he was coaching both of us. So he and Eric kind of had like talked about some stuff, but we're going into the flight and we're getting ready for the last couple of deadlifts. And I didn't notice this, but I hear that Hanny goes up to Eric afterwards, and Eric kind of shoos him off because, like, about me, he's like, "No, man, you go worry about Darrington. I got Ben for this." And so,
yeah, it's those are very, very tense moments. For me, it was really rough because Jesse had pulled 777, and they were like,
soft knee thing or whatever it was. I remember.
I was losing my mind. I was literally like, okay, cool. I was like, probably take a small jump. And he had the look on his face of like, I will tear the head off the next person that stands in front of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I got to go around. I'm like, okay, that's unfortunate. I got to go talk to my juniors. Okay, boom, 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 this and this and this. Boom, okay, Tina's good. Okay, she's done with her meet. And then I come back to Jesse, and I'm like, hey, man, like, you know that every time you come here, you're in for a fight. Because last year he had to deal with, those tough calls on squat. And that was really kind of just left like a kind of sour thing in his mouth. And, I told him, I should have, like, dude, it's when you get in those moments where you say, like, I told him, you're the best lifter in the world to me. You're the best lifter in the world. I felt that way too. I'll tell him he's the only person I fanboy over. You're the best lifter in the world to me. You deserve to be here. You are literally the best. They don't want you to win. But you're gonna go out there, you're gonna fucking give it everything that you have, and you're gonna destroy this weight. Everything. And he's just like nodding his head. And I was just in his ear the whole time. And I usually don't do that. It's not football. It's not like, in powerlifting it's a little bit different. But because the objective was simple, you're going to lift the same weight again, and you will win if you do it, and Dave Ricks will beat you if you don't. Granted, he only got one bench because he's injured.
Yeah.
So he goes out there and he fucking pulls it, and it was like, as hard as his second attempt was, I could not believe that he was able to get that. Like, it was so insane, and he held that bitch. It's so much weight to pull conventional with your hands.
Yep.
And his belt is nothing. His belt is literally like, you could just take a towel and put it around your waist, and it would be the same thing. And then afterwards he comes up and he's like, hey, man, like, you yelling at me, help me. And I was like,
oh. There you go.
Legendary. And I just wanted to die. But so those are the moments, man. Those are the moments that fucking, like, you remember. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've had a similar thing, but I'm excited to see what you do at Nationals. I know that this year is going to be what are your goals, man? What are you trying to hit this year?
Numbers? I don't call numbers.
What do you? Not even on
no,
numbers.
Legit.
Not even.
No,
on
like
numbers.
legitimately, it's not. And I know that sounds like a cop out. I promise, I'm not trying to protect my numbers.
No.
Because I live stream every single one of my workouts. If someone wanted to see exactly what weights I'm hitting every single thing, they could come and hang out. I spend 20 hours a week showcasing exactly what I'm doing for every training session.
It doesn't have to be numbers, but what you got to have some sort of goal.
I want PRs. I want to get PRs. That's really what it is. And I trust that my coaches will make the right call. I think that every time they've called for something to be on the bar, if I haven't lifted it, it was my fault. It was execution in the moment. I agree with every single call. The squat that I missed at the Arnold, that 672, that was my mistake. Like, that was the right call.
You were the only guy that went after me, I think.
Yeah.
Dude, I
had that squat on the day. If I would have executed, I botched the execution. I've never missed a squat as high as I missed that one, because I made an over adjustment. Like 650 is my second attempt. I pitched forward a little bit and was able to save it. And then 672 was a pretty aggressive attempt.
What did you open?
618, I think.
Damn, you took a big jump. I think we opened
618.
I opened a little heavier than you, but we had the same second, and then I was like, Tina, I'm not gonna go. You know, I'm cool with. I want 666 because Gino's gonna go crazy.
Yeah.
But I told her, like, you know, I'm cool with 300 too. And she was like, fuck that, you're doing 666. And then I ended up getting it, but I was very surprised that you missed that. I definitely think that you had it. I mean, like you said, over adjustment. But what I try to instill, you know, this is kind of why I like using singles. There's pros and cons to singles. They're not always useful, especially if you already have the neurological efficiency down. They will definitely drain me. Not everybody's like that. Like, I'll hit a single and then my volume suffers, whereas some people can do both. But I like to, if it's hard to do it, but if you can teach someone to just, like, once you step on the platform, everything that happens after that point is just their neurological mastery, their technical mastery just doing its thing. You step on the platform and then you're just like, whoa, I'm being possessed right now. What's happening? Why am I, you know what I mean? It's hard to explain, but it's like
flow state.
Yes.
If you do it right,
yes.
if you get into flow state, I do a lot of meditation and mindfulness. I was not as practiced at it during that particular meet, and I worked on it going into the next meet that I did. I did a local here, and had a completely different set of situations go wonky, but I squatted 300 at this local meet, and it looked like I had 680 on the day. Like, it was really smooth and really solid, just because I didn't botch the execution, and we wanted to get a little bit more of that.
That's a topic that I've never actually heard Ben Escrow talk about. He doesn't really put out content anymore, aside from, you know, supplement related stuff, but you can call the right number, but it's up to the lifter to execute. But I think if you're calling it right on if you're calling the number high enough to where the lifter's execution becomes, you know, like, they need to be perfect to get this, that's where, you know, coaching and experience comes into play. If I'm dealing with a very inexperienced younger lifter, I will probably hold them back slightly to make sure that they can build some confidence and absolutely get it. But a guy like you know, I'm willing, like, I'd be willing to put you in that situation and be like, okay, Ben, like, you know, it's up to you now. You know what I mean? And it can and sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't. And I think you missing is going to help you. We remember when we miss more than when we make, I feel. The misses would sting, and we will all, you know.
You learn way more from a failure than a success. It will stick in your mind more so. I would rather lose and learn from it than win without finding a way to improve for the next time, because then I'm not going to be able to grow from that experience. And that's what this whole thing is to me. Like, we're talking about competitions and stuff. One of the reasons I don't call my numbers, and I know that that's not, but my whole thing with powerlifting is not objective outcome. It's not outcome oriented goals. It's because I can't control so many factors. I can't control who else shows up. Like, another Jesse Norris could show up tomorrow, and no one can do anything about it, right? The only thing that I have any control of is my commitment to the process. So I'm much more process oriented in my approach, and it's about self mastery, about trying to improve the self. And that's why, because I always feel like I'm disappointing someone when they ask me what my goals are specifically for this upcoming whatever it is.
I didn't mean to make you feel like that.
No. That's I don't feel bad. I'm sorry if I make other people be like, oh, he just doesn't want to say. Like, I have some ideas of some things where I think I should be capable of based on my training, based on previous meets, based on, you know, what I think could happen. But ultimately, I don't want to hold on too tightly to any of those numbers, because it will create this other thing in my mind. I want to go back. I've been writing down a couple of topics that we kind of
Good,
touched
good,
on.
good.
You said we'll talk about that. One of the things with like in terms of the injuries and things like that, no one ever plans their injuries. I think that's one of the biggest problems that comes with programming for any kind of long-term thing. And when you have younger guys who will start to really push, or older guys who are really trying to push to make that growth, where you're having to fly a little closer to the sun to keep, you're getting closer to your body's make or break, kind of what Mark was talking about. And if everything's not right, you start to have the smaller margin for error, and those injuries are just right around the corner. And if you are so attached to any particular number, like I get it if you're chasing a specific record or something, but if that number is all that matters to you, then it's gonna push you to make probably some decisions that may not be feasible based on the reality of your current situation. You're stuck making these predictions. No one ever says, all right, 12-week block. Week 8, I'm going to tear my shoulder. And then I'm going to, like, no one plans for that. You have to adjust, and you can't get so, I think it can be useful to have your goals. Like, I like to think of the progress as being like the horizon. Like, that's the goal that I'm going at. I need to make sure that I have something that's tangible enough that I can look up and know that I'm heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to get better at powerlifting, I don't want to be running marathons.
Yeah.
Like, I need to make sure I'm in the right direction for that. But you can't look so much at that number that you're forgetting to look down and notice the easily skipped like cracks in the road that you're going to trip and fall over because you're so focused on that. Like, you need to stay in the moment.
Stay in the pocket.
Yeah.
Stay in the pocket.
That was kind of the thing there. You asked about if I'd gone to doctors for any kind of injuries.
Yeah.
I used to have a really good chiro that I had a good relationship with.
Talking
and
about maybe like an orthopedic or a general doctor.
I haven't had to do that. Probably should for my shoulder. I hurt this in 2007, and it's never gotten fixed officially.
What's going on?
Is
what's up with that?
Oh, I was in a wrestling practice, and guy had his arm back here, and went to throw with my hip, and I heard 3 pops through the shoulder. It went limp. Physical therapy for like 3 months until it was feasible and like moving again. Then my senior year for football, I wore a soft brace to like keep it in, but I was young and dumb and stupid all at the same time, and would dislocate my shoulder every single game, regular season game in high school. And the coaches had a rule that if you come off the field because you're injured, you don't go back in. Which makes sense. Like, if you're so hurt, you need to come off the field. We're not just gonna have you go back in.
I don't know what it is about football coaches. Like, especially you. I mean, you're a little bit older than me. Like 8 months maybe. But my generation, like those coaches, dude, they just make rules, and they're not the most efficient thing, and they don't really make sense. But it's just like a rule to teach you a lesson, and I don't regret it. It's just we did a lot of really stupid shit.
Yeah.
But it fucking, like small love, they just throw a shit ton of adversity at you, and you're gonna survive through it and become, you'll be able to handle whatever after in life.
What ended up happening though is because of that, I got really adept. Every time I would dislocate my shoulder, I would get my legs on it and pop it back in. So I had like 19 full dislocation processes my senior year of high school after having all that shoulder damage. And so everything just got really slacked out. So whenever I miss a bench, it always feels like I've got more in the tank. I never feel, even when I'm slow on a bench, I'll come down here, I'll lose space in this pec, and then the bone here will fall like that and roll forward, and I'll lose that tension. That's why that heave bench, that sink bench is something that I'm really drawn to, because I don't run out of that. I don't feel like I'm running out of that space. But if that rolls in, then it auto corrects into here. And so every single bench I've missed since 2007, I can trace it back to that specific feeling of that right shoulder.
Frustrating.
Yeah, well, especially when people are like, "Oh, you've benched 392 in a meet, you've benched 395 in training. When's that 400,
bro?"
Yeah, I've been like going up and down between 370 and 395 for like 6 or 7 years. like hitting those numbers. And so when someone's like, I'd love 5 pounds on a bench, man, 2 pounds. 2 pounds and making it cleaner and making it so my shoulder feels healthy is progress
That's why,
for me.
You know, what I tell people is we can only jump 6 pounds, like, you know, 2.5 kilos, right? We can't go lower than that unless you're taking a record or something. So you can still improve, especially if you're a girl, you know, if you improve your bench by 3 pounds, that's like me putting 10 pounds on mine. You know what I mean? And you're not going to see it, though. You won't see it because we literally can't make that jump. Granted, you know, I've yet to be, I don't know what it is about females, but like Tina has not stopped making progress on her bench since I met her. She benched the yellows when I met her, and now she's like consistently hitting over 200 pounds. So it's like, I feel like, you know, girls, they can just keep going, you know. I don't know what it is about them. I guess.
Well, I think there's something to be said too about like everyone's individual circumstance and situation. Like if someone was comparing their bench progress to my bench progress, they're probably going to be confused.
Yeah.
With like how much, I mean, if it's taken me so much to even become consistent with where I am. And I've got a few friends who kind of jokingly will be like, oh, Ben, I'm going to outbench you. And I'm like, you better. You have 2 shoulders that work. And what do I need to do to fix that? I'm considering taking some time away from other competitions this year to try and work on getting this figured out to the point. Because every time we get close to a meet, it's like, we're too close. We can't reinvent the wheel. We can't break everything else down. But... So, you know, if that's what's going to really hinder me. Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No worries. I do the same. I'm notorious for that. It's because our minds are racing. We have so much passion and fire that we need to get out. Anyway, so talking about your shoulder, I bet you that you do things in terms of the way that you train, the way that you prepare, the way that you just do things in general with your shoulder, that work for you, that allow you to train, that allow you to just function normally. And I think that's really, really important. I will share some of the things that I do with my back. When I get out of a car, I don't do one leg then the other. I turn 2 feet and stand up together. The reason is because when I got hurt, it was lunging. And whenever I have my hips uneven like that, like if I'm on a platform and I'm squatting and the platform's like that, I will get hurt.
Pelvic stability and all that stuff.
So I need to... You know, I won't do any single leg stuff, and I do a lot of things just for me that I need to do in order to be able to train and to be able to squat or deadlift, whatever. There's more than one way to get there. There might be an optimal way. Like, I wish I could deadlift sumo and deadlift very frequently, but it's just not something that I can do given my ailments. And just like you might not be able to go crazy heavy overhead press or crazy heavy, I don't even know, like something that involves your shoulder that's inhibiting you. Right. Maybe heavy singles screw up your shoulder and cause pain or whatever, so you don't do them all the time. But there is a way around it. That's one of the cool things about powerlifting. It's like never say never. You know, if a reason why I asked you about doctors is because, you know, I was just talking to one of my guys, and he actually, it was yesterday, he got bad news from a doctor on an injury that was non-powerlifting related. It was a very unfortunate thing, and it just kind of broke my heart because, I mean, we're already, like, of course he wouldn't get hurt doing powerlifting. It's something random, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like the doctors, they like, it's like, I don't even want to say they like, but it's like they like to tell us, like, oh, you need to stop the one thing that keeps you going. You need to stop. It's like they haven't done anything similar. They don't have a passion like that, so they don't understand that the way that they get their message across can seriously fuck somebody up mentally.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so in my experience, and something that always happens is always be open to a second opinion when it comes to medical professionals. For one, because and if you can develop a relationship with someone, like my chiro he wasn't just a pop guy. He wasn't just, I'll come in here and I'll adjust you. It was a lot of soft tissue work.
Good old
we did
pop
like
guys.
Yeah, a bunch of ART and stuff. But the idea is, like, I'm not going to adjust you unless we find something that I think we need to adjust. And there was always test, retest, and those kind of things. But he had a sports background, and he actually married a multiple-time fitness Miss Olympia, Tangi Johnson. So Dr. Brandon
Nice.
Bridgman in Ellensburg. He had a sports background. He understands what it's like to be committed to this kind of thing. And a lot of doctors, I don't think it's not malicious. It's not some sort of like, nah, I'm gonna break this guy's heart. But
It's ignorance.
when you're
It's gotta be
if you're a general practitioner, the body has so much stuff going on. Like they have people who go through entire medical degrees for one part of the body, and then you have these guys who are general practitioners who are giving someone these assessments, who have to know kind of little bits about the entire body. And the easiest thing for them to do is to say, what's the thing that's causing you this pain?
Don't do it.
Okay, yeah, don't do that thing. Because for them, like insurance-wise, liability-wise, that's the easiest way to stop hurting. If you're poking yourself in the eye and it hurts, yeah, don't do that anymore.
But
and
I
that's
need to.
maybe what they're seeing.
But I need to.
But-
I need to find a way.
But we are weird creatures, and we have things sometimes that we want to do that are not within our best interest,
Yeah.
maybe physically, and we do this thing. And at the highest level of any pursuit, anything that you're passionate about, that you put all of yourself in, it is by the nature of being excellent, it is imbalanced. You cannot be a balanced, normal person if you are trying to excel at the top percentile of something, because any energy that you're putting towards something else that isn't that one thing is directly taking time and energy away from your focus on that thing.
I'm looking for my keys because I was just gonna like hold the keys up to the camera and be like, "Ladies and gentlemen, he just said it." If you, I just made a video on this. If you, around Nationals time especially, people want to win. People want to give it, maybe this is the time of the year that you stop playing softball and stop, doing those extra run sessions or whatever to maybe you stop hanging out with your friends a little bit and you just kind of like put more effort in your recovery, put more effort into your, making sure that this meet, because it is, in my opinion, one of the most significant means. It helps get people to Worlds. It helps get people to the Arnold. You're going to be competing, with a lot of eyes on you, and it is just a meet. Like, I'm making it a big deal, but you're not going to be balanced. Right now, even me and Tina, I like to go out and I like to eat wherever, and we're not, because she wants her weight to be on point. I respect that, and it's a little imbalanced in that we're doing every day is like the same shit for these last couple weeks, because we want to make sure that for Nationals we're on point. You know what I mean? It's not balanced, and it wouldn't be something that I would like to do every single week for the rest of my life, because it's like, holy shit, like I want to have a giant pasta one of these days. You know what I mean? But
Right.
It's such a key thing, man, and people got to understand that. And these, that's why, I mean, let's use Lane Norton as an example. When people say, "Oh, you should take your own advice and quit lifting," and and this and this and this and blah 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 blah, and it's like, I don't wanna stop lifting and be like coulda, shoulda, woulda, and be old and not be able to lift and not know that I give him my 100%. You know what I mean? And even if you're gonna go through those injuries and those things, and it's not, I don't expect regular people to understand that. I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but my dad used to be like, "When are you gonna stop? You're hurt. You're killing yourself. When are you gonna stop?" And I'm just like, I mean, never.
So I think
when I can't do it anymore.
Maybe
I just play video games all day. I don't know. Like,
well, something to think about here is that there's nothing wrong with pursuing balance in your life.
Yeah.
Like if you want to live your life and have balance and manage those kind of things, if that's what you want, then you should go for that. I don't think that is a lesser life than someone else who kind of chooses to go all in on a specialized thing of trying to find their highest potential point of any one goal. I think the real problem comes with people who say that this one goal is their big thing that they want, but then their actions aren't reflective of that. That they're living their life trying to also maintain balance without understanding the kind of
Yeah.
commitment that you're saying that you want. The words you're saying are not matching up to your actions. Are you willing to commit to the thing you want? Because I don't care if you don't love this thing. It doesn't matter to me if you have a different goal. I want to support you, like, as a coach and oftentimes as a friend, or just as a guy on the internet telling you can do what you want to do. I don't care what your goal is. As long as you're not hurting someone else, I just want you to reach that goal. So if you tell me this is my goal, and then I see that you're doing something that is directly inhibiting your ability to pursue that goal, that comes down to being committed to whatever it is you say you do. And that's self-honesty. I can't do anything about that. If you're saying that this is the biggest thing, the most important thing in your life, but you're not making decisions that reflect that are not leading you closer to that horizon path I was talking about, then you're just being dishonest. And so, and that's not hurting anybody.
Coming up as I started out training people as a personal trainer here in good old Los Angeles. It was all about a lot of superficial people here. A lot of I'm just gonna pay this guy and he's gonna make me look like The Rock or something. You have a lot of people that come to you and they say, I want to do X, Y, and Z, but they, you can tell by like the third session, like, this guy's not going to last. People maybe don't want to put in what they need to put in to get to where they think they want to go. I definitely have guys that definitely do everything that they can because their lifting is a very high priority, and I am appreciative that I'm attracting those types of people. But then I also have people that maybe they work a 9 to 5, they have a kid, they have a wife, they cannot give powerlifting that much, but they can give it enough to where it is a positive, in their life. And dude, nobody's right or wrong. Like, nobody's right or wrong. Like, you could argue that person with the wife, kid, and the job and all that is living the dream. And you could also say that the guy who has nothing to do but make sure he is as strong as he can possibly be is, having fun and doing what he wants to do too. Happiness is a very individual thing. And if you work at McDonald's and it makes you the most happy person in the world and you are just so content with that and you just love your life, fuck, dude, be the best McDonald's person ever. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, I'm not even joking. Like,
no, for sure. I don't follow regular sports for the most part. Yeah. I follow esports, and I've heard people say oh, video games aren't, like, that's not a real. Oh, it's not. How can you find fulfillment? You're not working really hard. And I'm like, bro,
you have no idea. You have.
I have all the ideas.
Oh, you do.
That person has no idea. Honestly,
I don't.
I mentioned this once earlier before. When I first when I started to work and become really, really busy, just being at home a lot, I tried to think of, like, what could I do to help me handle more things at once, right? Because I need to be able to handle, X amount of lifters and just constantly changing from situation to situation. And I wanted it to be fun. And I was like, hey, I used to play StarCraft, right? That's arguably one of the hardest games in the world because your attention needs to go to so many different places at the same time, and you need to be fast, and you need to be efficient, you need to make the right counters, and da-da-da-da-da. So I started playing, StarCraft 2, and my goal was I wanted to increase my APM, so my actions per minute, but I didn't want it to be fluff. I didn't want it to be just hitting buttons. Yeah, I wanted it to be, like, useful actions. So you're taking your mental processes and your actions, and you're putting it towards actions that are going to be productive, right? And I found a way. It's crazy. Like, I'm working with X amount of clients, and I'm like, damn, this is hard. And then I suddenly, like I doubled it, and I'm doing it, and I'm balanced, and I've got it down, and I'm just like, I have become a machine at this thing. And
you're straight up Korean right now.
No,
man.
Not even close. I've only broken like 200 a couple games. I'm usually like 175, but those guys get up to like 400. Like, I don't even know how that's fucking their brain, like your brain to be that good, because StarCraft is a one-on-one thing, right? It's a ton of anxiety. It's so much anxiety because you have to think about so many things and you need to be quick. And dude, like, there's this one Korean guy, his name is Stats. This they need to do science experiments on his brain because he is literally everywhere at once. And you only get one screen. You can only see, one place at one time. But he's like,
I'm pretty familiar with the game.
And I'm just like, Like, that is a skill. I would watch that at the highest level and pay money to see that shit. You know what I mean?
I do watch that at the highest level. I watch that. I watch League. I watch
League is,
some shooters and stuff.
League is teamwork. Counter-Strike is teamwork. The teamwork thing, that is a whole nother thing. Those guys have coaches. They literally have coaches. Like, they live in a house together. Your minds just become, like, you meld. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for anyone to say, I just went off on a rant now because somebody was like, "Yo, esports aren't a sport."
Well, it's
What?
okay if you wanna make a thing and call it like that's arguing about words. Like, that doesn't make it not entertaining. That doesn't if you have a problem calling it a sport, all right, don't call it a sport. I'm still gonna watch that more than I watch.
I know that
football because there's no dragons in football, fam. What are you talking about? But I will say, I think that it's the biggest problem I see is that someone might view someone else's life choice in terms of whatever they're pushing themselves to do as not being on the same level as whatever they've chosen and whatever they're passionate about, because we tend to be less just give a little bit less grace towards other people that maybe they have something that's fulfilling to them and what I'm doing wouldn't be fulfilling to them. So I would never tell someone like, dude, you need to do powerlifting. Ultimately, powerlifting is you're going to pretend to sit in an invisible chair and change your mind halfway. You're going to squish yourself and decide halfway you want to unsquish yourself, and you're going to pick something up, not move it anywhere, and set it back down again. That's what powerlifting is. If you look at it from that, there's no intrinsic value to that. Yes, you can get a little bit stronger doing it, and there might be some intrinsic value from like health concern, but the level we take it to is, again, it's inherently unbalanced. You're beating your body up and constantly dealing with discomfort, but it's fulfilling. It helps you to work on personal growth. It helps you to see something that used to seem impossible. It's a challenge you set for yourself, and you work hard to overcome it. And if you can find value in that, then you can find value in this pursuit. But it's not the thing itself. It's the way that you approach it and the way that you allow yourself to be positively affected by it and to deal with the negative things associated with it and come out as a stronger person on the other hand. If powerlifting didn't make me feel more fulfilled and like I'm growing as a person, then I don't care. I don't care about this sport as just the silly lifts that it is. But I committed 18 years next week of my life to getting really good at doing those 3 silly things.
Yeah.
And it's
we have a lot in common. And I can tell that you get it, and it makes me just kind of like I'm vibing with you right now, and it really makes me appreciate appreciate you a lot. It's crazy because you are from a place completely different than where I'm from, and I mean, there's not a lot of people in Los Angeles that even care about powerlifting, and I mean, I don't blame them, but but like, you get it. And the cool thing about this is we can be from completely different places and go through it and learn those really valuable things. And I just thought about this, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier. Your whole thing is about like the kind of mental aspect behind powerlifting, and the way that I modeled my channel is kind of like discussing topics and things that lifters go through, and they can listen to what I'm saying, and it can help them. You know, they can listen to a video, go into training tomorrow, and it's gonna help them. You know what I mean? And it's
right.
Like, I don't know if like 5 years ago subconsciously you like got in my head, or I mean, when I made my channel, I was just like, everybody talks about how to do this and how to do that. Everybody talks about, you know, really clickbaity shit. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be like that. I want to be myself, and I want to talk about things that I think, because I mean, I work with people, you work with people. We can, like, okay, what are their issues? What do they have? You know, what adversities are they battling? Okay, how can I shed some light on this that will give them something to take away from it? Because I'm sure not only my lifter, but a bunch of other lifters out there that maybe can't afford it can watch one of my videos and take something from it. I think like you're at the end of your videos, you have like a lesson, right? I think Garrett does something very similar.
Garrett does my videos now are pretty much when I'm kind of holding off on putting out more until I get this audio thing fixed because I've been really unhappy with it. It really what it is. But I've been putting a lot of time and effort into the live streaming of my workouts. Like I'll stream for 5 or 6 hours 4 times a week. It wouldn't take me 5 or 6 hours to do my workout if I wasn't doing that.
I think that's really
it allows
cool,
me to like interact with other people and to help people out who can't afford coaching.
I think,
and just have some questions and stuff like that. So the same kind of idea, but what my videos were structured for a very long time is that the training footage in the background, I may mention what's going on, but I don't talk about the training. I talk about what I'm feeling or like the mental states associated either with that training or just with life. And I think that's it's not as popular as someone going in and being like, well, I want to fix my squat, but I don't care about that because that's what I think is going to matter the most to me, and the people who listen are going to like it.
My buddy, my buddy James, who I met from the gym, he's like a bodybuilder bro, and then he just became bros, and he was telling me that if you go out on the internet and you tell people how it is and you tell them the raw truth and you just kind of there's no there's not really clickbait. I mean, titles are supposed to get people to click on it, but I don't really, it's so crazy. I have all these videos on my channel, but the most popular ones are like one relating to like shoes or lifting equipment, and the other one is
the least substance.
Yeah, exactly. And the other one is like me venting about a drama that happened with Sean at Worlds, which is like, I mean, I'm over it now, but it was like fuck. But like it's crazy what people like, man. And it's like then you have, if you look at how certain people can grow their following on social media, it's a lot of it's very superficial and there's no real substance there. I don't really care. Like I'd rather have my 500 to 1,000 people that always watch my videos, that always show support, that
a small committed community that
come to the meets, that say, hey Joey, like I mess with you, like I get what you're saying, and one of my other guys is into marketing, and he was saying how companies are starting to look at like it's like micro communities where like you have less of a following, but it's a very dedicated, dense, like just high quality small group of people. Does that make sense? So it's like you may not be as big as someone else, but you have a percentage of them that are really, they'll listen to you and they're down with what you're saying, and that's, to me, that's what it's about, man. Like
how many of your followers are committed are just committed to staying with you on that kind of a thing, and that's sort of what I'm feeling with the live streams. It's a smaller community, but it's pretty tight. And then something else that what you're saying, and I think one of the problems that comes with trying to sell the truth in terms of it's tough to sell hard work. It's tough to be able to everyone we're naturally drawn to what is the quickest way that I can make this thing happen. And if I was to tell you that no, all this other complicated extra stuff is just kind of fluff. If you focus on simple basic concepts and you work hard at them for a long period of time, that is going to give you the best results. Not something flashy, not something that is kind of untested in these areas, but that's not sexy. No one wants to come in and be told that. They want to be told, here's the trick, the simple, it's something that diminishes the amount of work involved, that diminishes, like no one else knows this thing.
Want the quick,
this is my secret. Mm-hmm. And because that makes sense, like we're drawn to that, and so people want to. That's what makes it clickbaity. Is it's drawing attention with a lack of substance, and then trying to monetize people's natural reaction and
you're basically
attraction to that.
You're basically so we're all humans, right? And we all kind of have like it's like when a guy goes into the gym and he sees a hot girl, he's gonna be there are gonna be things about him, like whether he can control it or not, that are gonna be interested in that individual. And when you appeal to that, I mean, those are gonna be the channels that blow up. And what I like with some creators, like let's use Philip DeFranco for example, he'll do something clickbaity, but then he'll try to put substance in the actual video. So it's like, okay, hey, I got your attention now, you know, try to take something away from this. So I mean, there's a right or wrong, but you know, it depends on the individual.
You can recognize, like, you can respect someone's game. I can respect someone's hustle when it comes to those things. Like, I can see what they're doing and I realize and recognize what that is. A lot of the time I can tell immediately that that's not for me. Right? Like, there's certain kinds of people who are drawn to certain kinds of things.
I don't blame them. I mean, I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's just
right.
I want to.
Well, but that's the thing. Like, it comes back to the powerlifting. If someone came up and like, I think powerlifting's stupid, I'm not gonna tell you that it's not for you. Maybe it's stupid in your life. Too. But in my life, it's something different than what you're seeing it as. If someone said, "Why don't you just not do it? It's not an important thing to you," I can't tell you what is or isn't important in your life, right? And so there's some people who they're drawn. If it's like, I think the fitness has kind of moved more towards like vlogging and connecting with a person, and then that person feels pressured to be placed in a position of giving out information. I had someone on a live stream the other day who I was going over some technique stuff, and like I stopped my workout and I'm like, all right, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Here's why your knees are coming in. These are the 2 reasons that I think it's happening, and I explained it. And afterwards he goes, "Holy crap, Ben, you're way smarter than I thought."
Huh.
And it's like, yeah. Look
dude,
at that.
on my Instagram, I just mess around. If you wanna like find out the juice about Joe, you gotta listen to the videos in the 2-hour podcast. You know what I mean? Like that's where, you know. I mean, I've also kind of reached a point where like I can be a little bit more lax on Instagram, and I don't need to be. We've been around for a long time, you know what I mean? So it's like, you know, we don't have to. I'm not thirsty. I'm not thirsty. You know what I mean? And I.
There's a difference between trying to grow a following for the sake of growing a following and letting a following grow because you feel like the message that you're trying to purport is something that is substantive and is something that is going to help people.
That's why I'm a little. Whenever you collaborate with someone, if you guys aren't on the same page, maybe I don't want your followers, you know, like your followers aren't going to be interested in what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want them to just come because you're here, you know, I want them to come because they're down with what's going on here. And I was talking to someone in the gym yesterday about this. You know, powerlifting is a way, and this could be potentially why we see kind of people moving away from like bodybuilding and getting more into strength stuff. Powerlifting is a way to like measure growth, right? Like,
objective measure versus subjective.
It's like a literal, like, you know, the number will go up.
It's a math problem.
Yeah, exactly. So it's encouraging. Like I just said, I wanted my APM to go up. Seeing that number go up is encouraging, and it makes you want to, you know, keep doing it and like do what you can to kind of keep improving. And it doesn't feel like a waste of time. And I mean, there's other benefits too, but it's like, I tell people there are a lot of things about actual powerlifting, like what powerlifting is, I like, but there are things about it just with politics and other things that I don't like that much. But I care about the people, you know, that have chosen to invest their time in me in the sport. Like-minded people like yourself that, you know, we can really like connect and just move forward as a community. Like everybody can win. Everybody's moving forward. Everybody's, you know, Ben's gonna hit his PRs, Joey's gonna hit his PRs. You know, whoever's watching this is gonna take from this video and hit their PRs. And it's like, it's a very unique thing about powerlifting because, you know, there are like some negatives. There's like the whole. Some people have like super crazy ego and they just think that they're better than everybody else because they lift weights, when like most powerlifters, they'll lift and like they're very like calm and collected. You know what I mean? Like they don't need to. Oh, I'm just in the gym lifting, and then you have others that are like, I'm better than all these people because I lift more.
That's people in
rare.
general though,
Yeah,
right?
that
Like
is.
that's not just in powerlifting, that's in anything, in any kind of thing. And earlier you actually mentioned the idea of when you were in Jesse's ear during that meet of it's kind of a different approach. It's not football, right?
Yeah.
And something that's unique about powerlifting, or individual sports specifically, is someone else's performance on the day can't affect your performance. It might affect the way that you call numbers, but
Really,
I
the third
can't
deadlift.
outplay somebody,
Yeah. You
right? Like I can't
You
go
can't
and I
outplay
can't.
yourself though if you screw up.
No, but
Yeah.
it's the idea that someone, like, if you do your best and someone else does their best, like, people ask me
All you can do.
yeah, well, people ask me when Worlds was coming around, because I'm good friends with Bryce and with Garrett,
Mhm.
right? Like Bryce and I were about to be roommates. We were like one day away from that. That just ended up not working out, and I love Garrett to death, and I love his wife and his beautiful daughter, and like I think of these people very, very highly, and like I feel close to them, and I want the best for them. So people are like, oh, Bryce and Garrett battle the 105s. Who do you want to win? And I would always say,
Whoever's better
I
on the day.
I want everyone to have their best day,
Yeah.
and whoever's best day is best, I want them to win, because I wouldn't want to win. And this is me. This is very subjective, my opinion. I wouldn't feel good about a win if I showed up and there was a guy who's just objectively better than me, and he bombed out because of something, or like got hurt. Like I would feel really crappy if someone else got hurt, wasn't able to do well, and I won as a default. I would rather both of us have our best day and have them beat me and have me beat my previous self, because that's the cool thing about powerlifting is when people say like, oh, is this good progress or what should I compare myself to? Focus on your own numbers. Did you beat the person you used to be? If so, then you made progress. If not, what can you do to change it to start moving forward again? And that's the beauty of this sport. You're not directly influencing what someone else is able to do. You might make them make a bad call with that third deadlift strategery going on, and that's the sport of powerlifting. But the pursuit of powerlifting, the actual, like, what it really is about becoming your strongest self, period.
Both on the platform and, I think you can definitely empower yourself through lifting and carry that over into life.
Yeah,
I've
it's
seen it
analogous
happen
to
all the
life.
time. Yep. And powerlifting is the one sport where if everybody performs their best, I could tell you who's gonna win. I could tell you right now everybody's gonna win nationals. But you could have a mental breakdown on the day. I've seen it happen, and
Or external
that's
circumstances,
yeah.
whose time
Dude,
differences,
nothing
everyone's
you can do
traveling and
about that.
stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, you want to hope. You can't do anything about that, and everybody has to go through it. So you want to hope that that's a non-factor. But I mean, one of my buddies used to say hoping is a waste of time, and I get that. I mean, you're right. We got to be prepared. I'm a firm believer that if your preparation is good enough, you can literally predict what's going to happen within a very, you can get right on there. Like, so you hit 650, you miss 672. What percentage of that is it? You were still very, very, very close. You know what I mean? To predicting exactly where you were going to be.
Right.
I'm excited for nationals, man. I want to see. Can't wait to see you. How many days are you going to be there?
I fly out early Wednesday morning, like 6 a.m. here. Get there, so probably with the time difference, 3 hours from Washington to Orlando in terms of time difference. I think it'll be like mid-afternoon on Wednesday, and I stay through until Monday. So I live Saturday, you live Sunday, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna be a fucking.
You're a one.
I'm gonna be
Yep.
a light 120. I'm gonna have to drink water to make weight, but it's best for me to do that. People keep asking me, and it's like nationals for me is to get me to the Arnold where I can have fun. I don't really care what weight class I lift in. I'm not, I do want to push my Wilks and compete much lighter.
Yeah.
But now's not the time. Right now I have too many people that are really up there in contention to go to Worlds. So I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
If I miss this session and something goes wrong because I wasn't there, I will never be able to forget about it. I'm still fucked up inside from last year's nationals. There were some 93s in the morning that I didn't get to make because the 83s we finished at 2.
Super late at night, which would be great for me with my late night workouts and
So-
super time difference. But
So the next morning, I was like, I'm either gonna drop out of the meet, and I'm not gonna be able to make weight or anything, or I'm gonna sleep for. And I couldn't sleep because I was like, my people are on the platform.
yeah,
So it was only a couple people, but it bothered me a lot because I did the best that I could. I handled like 27 people, and
Right.
I missed 1 or 2, and it really killed me inside. But I had people there for them to make sure that they weren't alone. It just, I don't know, maybe that's just the person I am. Everybody's like, oh man, like, you're putting your lifters first. That's such a like noble thing. And I'm like, it seems like the right thing to do. Like, I'm not winning Worlds. I'm not going to Worlds. So, like, why not just make sure, like, that's what my whole thing is, like, I'm not the best lifter in the world, but I can be very influential in helping lifters become, I've already helped 1, and we're going to help a couple more this year, become
what gives you the fulfillment?
Yes,
that's
and it's
the thing.
seeing somebody, and it's seeing young guys come, take from me, apply that to their own shit, and see little pieces of me in them, and it's like seeing them thrive and just smash it. It's like one day when I have a son or a daughter, and I see that's kind of like what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to see them win. I want them to be happy to, rep Flexx training systems and Team Joy Flex, and I want them to just go out there and kill it, and I want to help them the best that I can to become the best that they can, because I can be more influential. I forgot who said it. It was like, oh my God, there was a pro athlete and a coach, and it was like, when you take these two people and you put them together, they're like unstoppable. It's like, I kind of like fell in love with that idea. It's like, if you can take the athlete and you have the guy, the guy behind the desk, if you saw Spider-Man, I don't know if you saw that part, but, and you put them together, then you have this team that's like, you can't lose, you know what I mean? And, that's what I tried to do. That's what I'm like. I know that I can be more impactful as a coach than as a lifter, but I do inspire people here and there. People
You
tell me all the time,
can it's not necessarily an either or thing too. You can find your own fulfillment with the lifting. I had one of my lifters is the first time I had someone bring back an IPF World Championship this year. Mark McQueen won the 120 juniors, and was like one of those awesome fulfilling moments as a coach. And
almost like more than for yourself. Like you're like, that's why I'm like, yeah, I'm competing, whatever, but my guys are competing.
Right. No, because I do. That's one of the reasons why with the live streaming and stuff, like I enjoy the process of sharing it with other people. Like this would be much less meaningful to me if it didn't have a positive impact potentially on other people, and be able to, when someone says, hey, I used to watch your videos, or hey man, I watched the live streams and some of the things you said like hit me right there, and something clicked and it made a difference. And that is that's way more fulfilling to me than hitting any particular number. And I'm going to try my best. I still want to push my own personal growth.
You might surprise yourself,
yeah. Well, either way, I'm gonna learn something, right? No matter what, I'm gonna learn something from it.
It was crazy, man. It's so crazy how our minds are just linked up. I was going to bed last night and I was thinking, happiness is somebody said this to me and I thought of it last night. It was, happiness is only true when shared, meaning what's the point of, going through an experience and enjoying something when you're alone? You know what I mean? Being able to do that with other people is what, I don't know why that is. I don't know why we're like that as humans. Obviously some people are going to be more selfish than others and they only care about me, but it's like, if I learn something new that's fun, I want to teach other people about it and try to help them, experience it. And that way we can kind of like see, man, like see the thing that I was telling you about. Like it's great. And powerlifting is definitely one of those things. I don't think like if I was imagine if like when I compete alone by myself. I mean, you always make friends at the meet, and it's always a fun thing. But like, if you're alone doing it, it's nothing compared to when you have a whole group of people there supporting you, and even sharing it on social media, and sharing that experience with other people. Like, if I hit my 630 squat in the gym by myself, at this new low body weight, it's like, oh, that was cool. But the fact that I got to share it with people, and get a little pat on the back is it's encouraging. And also I had a guy, just a regular dude, DM me, and he's like, hey man, like watching you lift really inspires me because I feel like I'm similar to you. I feel like I'm like you. And I'm just like, damn, like I influence one person that doesn't even lift, and I mean, it's been like a ton of people over time. And dude, you've been doing this for so long. There are probably so many freaking people that have gained something from your lifting, or you probably inspired them to get into powerlifting. And
I hope so.
Yeah, I can tell you 100%.
I anytime that happens, it makes every time that I don't feel like doing it,
and you're
easier to get through.
Yes, and you're very strong. I mean, you've been doing it for a long time, and you've reached a point where like your strength is appreciable, and not everybody could just wake up and do that. And even though you say like, your genetics are shit and you worked really, really hard, I think you have a crazy back. Like your back is made out of steel. Because I'm not like that. But I also
let me step back on that, because I don't want to diminish someone else's situation. I don't think I have necessarily bad genetics, but I don't view myself. What I said is I was never accused of being genetically gifted. I think I'm just like a normal guy, and I've got some slightly longer than average arms, some slightly longer than average femurs, and the one thing maybe that I've, in terms of like that I've inherited genetically or through the nurture, nature versus nurture, whatever, is just I think that a stubborn consistency and persistence over time, the ability to be self-honest with myself, and to be honest, and like that wasn't as good as it could have been, and to find those things and to be driven to try and add more. I think that's really what is my biggest strength in terms of my lifting.
Anyway, I'm gonna just look at do you have anything on your notes that you wanted to touch on? Because I'm trying to see if there's anything I missed.
We talked about the selling ideas, talked about football. We were at one point we talked about you mentioned chance and volume.
Yeah.
And we never really went into that. You were talking about.
So basically, he's doing a lot, right? Like he's doing a lot, and everybody has a certain amount that they need to do to progress. But I would be interested to, like we talk about yearly planning and how, nationals is the meet that we really push for. Chance kind of pushes like year round. I'm curious to know how little he could get away with to progress. And I would be curious. I mean, I could talk to Eric about this at nationals. It's not like that big a deal, but I would be curious if this is what he believes his, the minimum amount he needs to do to get him to improve is. Maybe he has just learned to handle a shit ton of volume and has a really crazy high work capacity. I know that I do things the way that I do for myself personally because I need to deal with my ailments. And let's use my lifter, one of my lifters, Sean Noriega, for example. He benches the way that he does because over time we have found this to be, most efficient for him and his mobility and his everything. Just like the way that you squat with flats. You have like I would say like 1.5 to 2.0 shoulder width stance, I guess. You're very you kind of taco a little bit. You bend over a lot, you fold a lot, and your hips kick back, which I found gives me more power.
Yeah, I draw my hips back, but my torso angle is.
I actually think that those kinds of squatters,
though.
Yeah. So it's not a bad thing at all. It's actually, I think, beneficial in a lot of cases. I don't always think that the upright, all knees squatter is the best way. I think it might look prettier, but there are a lot of really, really strong squatters that squat that way, like you, and you're one of them. And then on your deadlift, you pull hook grip, which you had to work really, really hard at over a long period of time to get down. Am I right?
I implemented it a lot, and we are jumping around again, but I will come back to it. So I'll work backwards. So the hook grip was something that I had played around with for like warming up, and I always in the back of my mind I have this like chaos mentality of if I forget my belt and go to a meet, because that's happened to me before now. So I need to be like, can I work up beltless, and like, how can I minimize those things, like prepare for the worst, hope for the best. I had a meet once where I had the problem where I got called on deck. It was really packed and the flights got mixed up, and so I was Ben Rice on deck as I was taking my first warm up, and so I had to warm up from empty bar to 575 in one rotation. I scratched my first and did all my warm ups in that one thing, and then did my opener as my second. So now I implement it so whenever I get close to a meet, I can warm up empty bar to my last warm up in 12 minutes on squatter deadlifts. I just know that I can do that. If something were to ever happen, it won't ever happen again, I'm sure of it, but I know that I can do that. The hook grip was if I ever had something happen like a callus tear, if I like tore a bicep or something and had to switch in a meet and still compete, I was like practicing that. Leading into the Arnold was the first time that I deadlifted and competed hook grip, because while I do feel it's better to have both my hands facing the same direction, better lat activation, I don't have this underhand with the joint causing the issue, because every deadlift I missed over 700 pounds in the last probably 5 years has been the same miss of this kind of corkscrew away where the underhand moves forward and I lose tension in that shoulder and my upper back rounds. And so switching to the hook grip pretty much prevents that from happening, because even if I get pitched forward, it's not rotational, so I'm not losing that spinal stability and my pelvis stays aligned. But it took training in the suit to make me commit to that, because the suit was helping my hips and helping me with like lifting more weight, but it wasn't fixing that one rotational problem. And so one day, the first time I ever deadlifted 675 with the hook, that same session in the suit, I deadlifted 765, because like I just had to commit to that certain point. So I'd worked on it a bit. I was, I knew that I could be in the 600s, but I always thought like, it's going to take me a while to work up to being able to do that much weight. It was just committing full in to doing that. But it's like making these decisions. Like if someone had tiny hands and the hook grip is just so uncomfortable for them that they just can't stand to do it, I wouldn't say that the way they're doing it is necessarily wrong. And that's one of those differences. And like with my shoulder for the bench pressing and like how to train it, I program for my athletes differently than I would program for myself because of our own situations. And then all the way back towards in terms of like volume, work capacity, Chance specifically, when I've talked to him, because Eric Chance and I did that podcast, and this came up, the idea of I had asked, I don't know if this one because the first time we tried it, I botched the audio and it didn't record any of their audio for the first hour that we talked. But
that makes me want to check this one. Go ahead.
Well, see, that's why we did the test, right? Because I was the OBS the first time, and I had my microphone was picking up things. Right. But so there's one podcast and we kind of talked about that stuff, and I had the question of like the junior division, and if I posed the question to Eric and to Chance because when I was young enough to be a junior, no one cared about a junior division because there was no real competition in the juniors. Like if you went to a meet, if you just wanted a trophy, you'd sign up for juniors because no one else would show up, right? Like there was a lot less representation in the sport at that time.
The juniors are arguably like winning the open, so
Well, and there's some lifters who you definitely could just have them sign up for the open, but then there's people who are like chasing junior records, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and people who are doing that and like their competitive thing. And so with and I think I asked Chance in that first podcast, I said, do you think that you're training the way that you are to maximize your approach specifically for your run as a junior, and then you'll take maybe your foot off the gas a little bit for more of a long-term approach?
Man.
And then I posed the question to them both. I said, do you guys think that do you think it's good for the sport, that it's causing a more competitive junior, kind of like capitalism? It's like the competitive market will cause the best situation to be up here at the expense of everyone else who can't keep up and burns out. Do you think that it's going to have a few people get held up as being these are the ones who are really successful in this while it burns everyone else out? Chance, his response to me, he sounded pretty confident that after the junior run is there, then he'll have some time to back off a little bit and still be able to make that progress.
So
but
the fact that he is younger and he can potentially make more of a mark.
In this, maybe less make more of a mark as a younger lifter, but my understanding, and Chance, if you watch this, I'm sorry if I'm misrepresenting it. Mm-hmm. My understanding is that I don't get to make a mark as a junior once I'm past that point. And so make the most of your junior situation, then reset for the open, then you have the whole rest of your life to worry about the open kind of an approach. So that's what my interpretation is.
Was there another part to that? You answered it. Yeah, him chilling out after.
Well, the other part that I was going to talk about with volume, where you're talking about how much do you think someone could make progress with, and I have people come onto the stream all the time and be like, "Hey, what about this rep scheme? 5x5, 3x5, what's better?"
I mean, it depends.
What's enough volume? That's the universal answer for strength coaching always, right?
Yeah.
It depends, or like we're always, when you're speaking in generalizations, it's called a generalization because it's not going to be individualized for every single person, but you're speaking to a general population.
I see it, it's like you need to disrupt homeostasis, and there's more than one way to do that. You could argue that with high reps, you're having that metabolic response where you're fucking dying with 500 pounds, and you're like I know I could do 12 or 13 or 15, but like I'm dead at 10. But go ahead.
Here's the thing. When you say high reps or low reps, compared to what?
Compared to
it
has to be relative.
That's the thing. It's always relative. When someone's like, "Oh, is this a crazy hard training protocol?" I don't know. For some guy, it might be. For some other guy, it might not be.
For most of our audience, they'll probably they'll probably think. Everybody, it's so funny. Like a while back, everybody's like, "Oh, Joey, he gives lots of volume." I was like, "Dude, I have some 120 boys on like nothing."
Yeah. Well, there's all these other factors, but it has to be relative to the lifter.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of programs can work, but you can structure it to the person.
And this can, this is kind of this might be good or bad advice depending on how you take it, but I would rather someone, if you're unsure, ride a little bit above what they need to get a good, to make gains and have a good super compensation action towards the meet than being way under it. Like if I give Tina my volume, she's just going to regress like nonstop. I don't want to give people lots of work. They just have to show me that they need it, and then if they do, then I'm like, okay, well, I think you can handle benching 5 days a week. No problem, and I think you're going to see good progress from it. And your technique is going to be, on point. It's all relative.
And it's relative to what they used to do, what they're used to doing.
And
it's relative to
it can change.
And it can change, and even the same volume within 2 weeks, depending on their availability for things like their rest and recovery. Are you stressed outside the gym right now? We spend a few hours in the gym a week. Or if you spend, 2 or even 3 hours, let's say you're a gym hero and you're spending 4 or 5 hours in the gym in a training day, right? That's still going to be 19 or 20 hours that you're not in the gym.
Yeah.
That time is going to have a huge effect on what you're doing.
If you're getting off of that to go work manual labor overnight, you're going to be pretty steep fatigue dead after that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're just doing that and going home and sitting in front of a computer like me and being a potato, then you'll probably be all right.
But then your hips are going to get tight. Like those are like all those things. Like it all comes in.
When I warm up I don't do a lot of stretching, which I know you're like. I don't know if you do as much as you've done.
Excuse me.
No worries, man. But that's the one thing that I do spend time loosening up is my quads and my hips, because it literally feels like I have no legs. Like I get up and I'm like, my legs don't exist. Like
Yeah.
fuck. And then I go to the gym and then it takes me a while to warm up. But you know, you find your groove, you find what you need to do. I find that if I do too much, I can get hurt, especially because my back is already very long and mobile.
You don't want to get hypermobile
Yeah,
to the point where
I don't
it's
need that going on.
just like with the volume. If someone says how much mobility you need or how much volume do you need as much as you need, and that's dependent on you.
People hate that
because it doesn't give them a quick, easy,
well,
fast.
I told
tell
you
me
this
the
stuff
black and
isn't
white.
this stuff isn't sexy. This stuff isn't it. A lot of times, keys are not really all that secretive.
They're not
Every time
yeah.
it's like, Joey, what's the key for this? All right, here's the key. Eat well, work hard, get a lot of sleep.
But I am doing
Keys.
that, and then you look
I know
at it,
that's what it is,
and then
but
you
that
look
doesn't
at it,
sell.
and you're
People don't.
yeah. Then you look at it and you're like, oh, you're actually not doing all that. You're messing up here, you're messing up here, you're messing up here. Some guys they eat like 50 grams of protein a day, 50, and I'm just like, how much do you weigh? 220? What are you doing?
Yeah,
How
it's
is it
10
making-
times worse when you even know it, and you're like, because I think that's actually been one of the things with my shoulder, where after this year, one of the reasons I believe that I can improve the situation is because for so long I've been able to just recognize that's why I haven't. My shoulders are underdeveloped. Partially because I have a bad shoulder, so I haven't done as much direct work, but also because knowing that I have a bad shoulder makes me hesitant to try and bring those up, and so it's actually potentially increased the gap. I don't know.
I'd be
I don't know.
curious to know if I wonder if you screwed up your labrum or something. But
If it's like surgical kind of thing.
But I know a lot of guys that have, and you just like the body, it just fucking finds a way. Like it'll do what it can to get around it. Sometimes things heal that don't normally heal. I remember my left knee was so bad I never thought I'd get out of it, and it took a long time. And dude, like, let's talk. I want to touch on this because we touched on it briefly at the Arnold, and then we'll probably shut it down. But I think a lot of people squat in heels that don't need to. And I was wondering if you could just, give whatever experience or feedback you've had with that. I know you've tried. I think if you can't hit depth, I would try working on hitting depth in flats and, maybe widening your stance a little bit. I think that your hips are going to hold a lot more power than just your legs. I mean, everybody's got, you can have strong legs, but like when your hips are cocked back in the bottom of a pod squat, you have a lot of like thrust. Like you're going to want to, your glutes are very, very powerful, and the more we can stretch them and utilize them, I think you're going to be able to lift more weight and be more controlled even with your feet nice and flat versus like when you're in a heel, you could have balance issues, you feel tilted, you might be able to keep your back straight, but you're taking out very, very powerful muscles and putting more stress on, like you're creating a like force of stress, like you're creating a like gravity is imposing upon your body in a way in which you were not like designed. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like
you're altering your biomechanics at the ground level.
We don't walk around in heels. Like humans just don't do that. So I mean, we might run in them, and there's a reason why running shoes have a heel. But like how do you feel about
the Romelio hype?
One of my favorite quotes of all time is "Don't have $200 squat shoes for a 50-cent squat." I think that I will not presume to say that everyone who is squatting in heels would be better off squatting in flats. I will say, in my own experience, that when I have trained in heels and then moved back towards squatting, like I'll try it and give it an honest try for a few months and be like, all right, these are pretty comfortable now. This feels like I think it's supposed to feel. And then I go back to flats in the first session, like, this is so much better. This feels so much better. And that's not going to be the case for everyone. That's not going to be the instance. But when you look at why someone is wearing heels, I try when it comes to any kind of training protocol or any kind of training decision, I think that the why determines the how. The why you're doing it, whatever your goal is, whatever you're trying to accomplish, needs to be the basis, and you need to have everything go through the filter of what your intended goal is, what your focus is, and that is going to determine how you go about doing that, whether that's the way that you're handling your accessories or the way that you are equipping yourself to move weight. If you are putting yourself in a position where you have a raised heel because you don't have adequate ankle or hip mobility to achieve full depth in a squat, I can understand that, but can you work on improving that, right? Can you get more mobile in your hips, glutes, and ankles to be able to do that? And if you're able to do that, does that seem like a worthwhile thing to try and find a more biomechanically sound squat? Because there's some really beautiful Olympic lifting squats out there, and they're all with a raised heel. It kind of makes sense for catching a heavy clean or a snatch in that super hyper mobile,
you need to get your
low
knees
position.
To go somewhere. So by doing that, you can kind of create that space.
But the requirements of catching a heavy Olympic lift at the bottom of the movement and the requirements of getting a squat to competition depth are vastly different. Yeah. And so it makes sense for someone who's trying to catch a clean where they're picking up marbles with their butt cheeks on the floor with a raised heel shoe. That makes sense. It makes less sense to me for powerlifting. I'm not throwing shade at all the squat. I have 2 pairs back there. I'm not like opposed to it. I'm not going to say you're a silly boy or silly girl for doing that. But if you can improve your mobility to be able to manage that, that's one less factor you have to worry about. My experience is I have been able to generate more force with my hips. My balance is not being, I get pitched when I wear heels. I feel like I'm getting pitched forward really hard every single time. And I see a lot of lifters will go into this lumbar flexion at the bottom of a squat where they think they have adequate mobility, but their glutes and their hips are too tight and they're not maintaining a neutral spine under load. And then they're like, oh, well, the shoes help me hit depth. It's like, you're not hitting depth with tension either way. You should fix that before you... A lot of the time when someone just goes out and buys something that is, again, you can't sell hard work. You can sell a $200 pair of dollars. You can sell a $200 pair of shoes that tells someone that it's going to help him hit depth easier. Oh, easier? I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do the easier thing. I'll pay $200 for that.
That there are extreme cases. For example, Tina has like really, really bad scoliosis, and we have tried for so long to get her to squat in heels or in flats, and it just it'll never pass. And she already has a hard time enough already in the heel, so it's like we can't risk that. And if it can take stress off of her back to use the heel, then that's what we're gonna do. She actually has the maximum, I think, height heel that you're allowed to use, which is like 1.5 inches or 1 inch.
I think it's 2 inches. I think 2 inches is the max.
It's not 2. It's a little bit less than that, but
Oh, okay.
No. Like, you might be right, but her heel is not a 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
I thought you were saying like the maximum allowed would be like I think
I've never
2
even
in
seen a 2. That'd be weird, but yeah, you
got to get those bench arches, man. Flat feet, but not really.
Yeah, I think heels can be a useful tool, but I would definitely try everything you can in flats first. And I mean, when I switched to flats, my squat instantly went up like.
I mean, well, look at Ray Williams. Look at Dennis Cornelius squatting in his bare feet. Garrett in the.
Then we had Garrett, and then my man Russell. He's 660 in flats.
Yeah, it's like
smaller guys. I feel like they all use heels for some reason. Like little guys, like the 145, the 50. What are they? Damn it! What is that weight class? 66 kilo, and then 59 kilo. They all use heel. I'm not really too sure why that is, but I definitely feel more stable and I feel more in control, especially that. When you have 666 on your back, and I knew at the Arnold I walked out with it, and I was like, I have this thing. Like, I'm not, I'm gonna get this. It's a very there's always a little bit of uncertainty when you walk out with a big weight. One that's and the physics are different above 650. You would know this.
The bar whip,
Yeah,
like specifically with how it kind of the oscillation of the bar on your back.
It's not 500 pounds. It's like, whoa, like, okay, I need to be really careful with this.
Yeah.
You need to, like, if you can maximize your stability and your control, that's going to be another variable that's not going to play into why you make or miss. If if you're like, oh shit, and then you start squatting, you're probably you might cut it high because you're scared, or a lot of different things can happen.
And that's one of those benefits to the singles that we had talked about too, of like occasionally working heavy enough so that you're not shocked by that when it happens.
That's why I asked if your 585 felt like a shock, but I know you said like you knew.
I anticipate at this point, because I've had a couple. If you have a chance, after we're done with this or something, I'll link you the video I did from when, like, right after the Arnold, I did those stunts. I did my 800-pound deadlift on a deadlift bar, so it doesn't matter.
Shoot me a DM
and then I did my Instagram video of a 1,700-pound total in 58 seconds. So I did a 615 squat, a 365 bench, and a 720 deadlift. I was only able to bring in one bar for that, and it was at the rec center at the school. And we had so I was using their
take
general.
all the plates off and move it?
No. I set it all up so I had all three stations, because the whole point was to do it in 58 seconds. So it was like, I wanted to total 1,700 in an Instagram video without any editing.
I remember the rec center. The legendary rec center.
But those bars are really the tensile strength of those bars is really low. So that 615 squat was like, because I didn't want people to get all sassy on the internet being like, oh, you used a whippy bar on your dead. So I used the Ohio power bar for my deadlift, and then a crappy bar for the bench and for the squat. And I actually had these big old the rubber plates. Like, they're not bumpers, but they're those handled ones, I think. Or maybe I don't know. Either way, the bar physics were just wonked. It felt, in terms of like bar movement, it felt like 700 or 800 pounds. Like, it was just wiggling the whole time. And as I walked it back, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what it would feel like to do. Like, I don't know how Ray does what he does with that bar. It's just like,
wonk, weight helps counteract what he's dealing with. But I mean, I can imagine,
But the idea of those bar physics, that's definitely what and ever since that, I'm like, oh, okay, I need to be ready for this, and I need to make sure my core stays engaged the whole time so that I am anticipating that. And when you anticipate those feelings, again, it changes your perception of what you think it's supposed to feel like. When you know that your maximum effort work is supposed to be difficult, like, I think people are like, oh, that easy. Oh, RPE, why even bother? It's like, when you get to the heaviest weights you're ever going to handle, it's always going to be like your maximum, like, potential force output. It's supposed to be as hard and as strained as you're able to experience to get that. Otherwise, it wasn't really maximal for you.
Yeah. I think, and being, talking about readiness, you can taper and peak for a meet and be stronger than you've ever been. And I always tell people, like, I'm not going to PR my squat in the gym. I might hit a gym PR, but I'm not going to hit that. Like, I was just never that prepared. I'll just never do that. And the arousal from meet day. So you can't be in a position to where you handle a weight you've never handled before and it feels great and it moves quick, but it's rare. And, I think sometimes people get too caught up on feeling good, and then when they feel bad all of a sudden, it's like the end of the world, and they start questioning their life and everything, and it's just part of it. That's a whole nother thing, dealing with fatigue. Literally half my channel is on that, but anyway,
that's another 2-hour podcast right there.
I think,
Joe,
so guys, like, I originally was like, hey man, let's go chat for an hour to hour and 15, and it ended up being like 2 hours, but it was really, really good. I think we have a lot of substance and depth in this episode. I had a lot of fun. Ben, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to see you in 2 weeks, really.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man, you'll be there in 2 weeks. I'll be there.
Yes, sir.
The Saturday before you, but we will be chilling in Orlando. Let me get, every episode we do like a hashtag in the bottom, How do you feel about let me get a hashtag trust the process in the comments below to everyone that made it this far. We're good
All
on
right.
that? Just do that.
Here we go.
Alrighty, so trust the process in the comments below. Ben, thank you so much for coming on. And
Thanks for having me.
alrighty, guys. See you in the next one.